Good afternoon. We are the Maestro Musicians Academy, and I am Daniel Broniatowski, the artistic director of our school. We are a music school that is based in the greater Boston, Massachusetts area, and more specifically, we serve the towns of Lexington, Bedford, and Walpole, and we now serve the world through the World Wide Web with our online music lessons. So whether or not you are looking for lessons in person or online, we can help. We offer music lessons in piano, violin, cello, trombone, trumpet, guitar, voice, and pretty much anything else you can think of. So we do these monthly video casts with the intention of helping you, our listeners, parents, viewers, students, and anyone else who might benefit from learning about exactly how the music lesson process works and how music lessons might be a good fit for your family or for yourself. So today's topic is a very important one, and it's actually a topic that is very encompassing and requires a lot of thought. The title of our video today is it hard for me to get my child to practice, or maybe is it hard for every parent to get their child to practice? Because ultimately, we all know that music lessons are not going to be of any use if a child or an adult student doesn't really take what was learned in the lesson, work on it at home, and then come back the following week to progress. So let's talk about the spirit in which we intend to ask this question, because a little bit of context is important first. In order to know how much a student should practice or should not practice, one needs to also understand where the student is coming from in terms of his or her abilities, their age, maturity, and also where they intend to go with the music lessons in general. We do sometimes get parents who say, I like my student, my son or my daughter, to just take lessons to enjoy the experience. And I promise you, as a music director, the enjoyment will come when they practice. But I'm already going ahead of myself. So let's talk about where we're going now. The answer to the question, or the topic of this video, is going to be different based on the age and stage of the student. So, for instance, someone who's starting out at the age of 4 probably is not going to practice very much at home, and we wouldn't expect that we should push that child. On the other hand, someone who's been taking lessons for a few years, maybe a kid who's 8 or 9, is ready to start developing a more consistent practice routine. We're going to talk about how to make that happen, depending on different situations and what we do with kids in different age ranges or experiences, because this is really the crux of the matter. A child who is 4 years old, maybe 5 years old, starting out for the first time, whether it's piano, violin, voice. Well, voice we don't really offer for that age, but you get what I'm saying. A child who is that young is not really capable yet of remembering everything that has been covered in the lesson, but they might remember a few things here and there, and a parent who is present might be taking notes, which is not always necessary, but is sometimes helpful. The good news about kids who are that young is that the method books are pretty self-explanatory. They start with pieces or songs that are relatively simple and straightforward. They're learning about where to put their fingers on the keys on piano, or how to hold the violin. Posture is the name of the game at this age, and we're also exploring what the names are of the notes and where to put the fingers in order to get those notes, or maybe where to put the hands to get a desired sound from a different instrument, like a stringed instrument. So we're establishing at this age a foundation for kids who really have absolutely no knowledge about anything music related, except the fact that they might like music and they might have heard music or seen other people play. Although we want to, at the young age, start to establish a regular rapport where they come to visit the teacher every week and where they come to get to know what music lessons are, we're not going to push regular practicing at home, except we are going to try any way possible to get them to just maybe take out the instrument once a week, twice a week, just have experience with it playing, and it can be like totally free play. We don't have guided play, it's totally free play. So if you are a parent of a student who is 4 or 5 years old, don't worry about it. We don't have to worry about pushing them. Now, fast forward a little bit. Let's say a child is 6 years old. Whether or not they're starting for the first time, whether or not they've been playing for a few years, we do want to start establishing some very elemental ground rules about how they can start to develop a more regular and healthy routine. I like to use the analogy about subjects that a student is taking in regular school as it relates to what we do. If your child is doing homework, whether it's at the age of 6, 7, or 8, I know that different schools are slightly different, they are totally able to do practicing. Now, the amount of homework that they can do and the amount of practicing they can do is going to vary depending on the child, who's 6 years old, for instance. But you as a parent know your child best. Now, what I like to see as a teacher is that students are able to develop some kind of healthy routine that involves maybe 5 minutes a day at the age of 6, maybe 10 minutes if they're able to do it. And in that routine, they can work on maybe one song. They can play that song a few times. At this young age, the goal is to, of course, help them to understand that we want to be able to create music in a way that they're playing the right notes, they're playing with the right technique, but we also understand that it's not necessarily possible for them to remember everything that was in the lesson, but effort is really more important here, and what we're really trying to get them to do is have a healthy and positive association with the instrument so that they want to keep on coming back to it. So it's a little bit of a hybrid between what we were saying for the kids who are 4 and 5, where we want them to have a free play experience, whereas the 6-year-old kid might be having that free play experience, but we start to now guide them in a certain path. So already at this age, students are going to have maybe some very basic exercises that a teacher will give them, and what's going to happen is that they'll have these exercises which usually have some very basic intentions, and when they play those exercises, those intentions are designed to build their technique. And the nice thing about many of the method books, whether it's piano or violin, is that kids at this age will have some pictures to refer to or diagrams, and they'll be able to understand them. So it's absolutely possible for a 6-year-old to start to have this routine. Now, let's go back to the topic at hand, which is it hard for every parent to get their child to practice? Because sometimes kids don't want to practice, sometimes they don't see the point of it. And I answer that in 2 ways. One is, how do you as a parent deal with a child who is not willing to do his math homework or any other homework? It could be anything. What do you do? Well, I would say do the same thing. That works for music. We do have instances where kids start to feel this is really not something I want to do, it's not fun. And if that happens, well, you can't force someone to do something that's not fun. But then the other side of that coin is, how do we get the child to find it fun? Maybe it requires switching teachers. Maybe it requires a different environment at home. And I'm not the person to criticize anyone's parenting. That's not my intention. However, I also have seen situations where there are parents who are actually part of the problem, because there is a situation where a student might feel that they're under pressure. And what we want, because we're developing an expressive art, we want children to understand that there is a balance between needing to have a discipline involved where they have to do something regularly, while at the same time understanding that this is their journey. Well, how do we do this? This is easier said than done. I think, my personal opinion is that the answer lies somewhere in the middle. What we have to do as parents is stay very motivating while still keeping students responsible. So how do we do that? Well, in some instances, it might involve working with a child every day. Maybe as a parent, we have to sit there to get Johnny to practice, and eventually he's going to understand that there is something really cool that comes out of it, especially when they can play their first piece really well, or when they can make a video of it and share it with their grandparents, or maybe when they can attend one of our recitals and present in one of our recitals. So that's one way to do it. Having a goal at the end where they can actually see this all had a purpose is really important. There's some people who say, well, you're going to regret it if you don't do it. Well, kids don't understand that. I would not say that to a child that, you'll feel guilty if you didn't do it, or when I was your age, I couldn't do it. They just don't get it. It might be that, we are coming from a good place when we think these things or say these things, but in reality, it just doesn't work. I mean, that's what I've seen. So we have to recognize that this is your child's unique goal, unique journey. So that's where I'm coming from this. But as parents, we have the responsibility as well to see to it that our children keep on going, and we as parents don't give up on them. Now, I did mention sitting with them every day. That's not necessarily appropriate for everyone. For some kids, sitting with them once a week will be fine. Maybe some kids know what to do themselves and they're just mature enough to do it. Your child is going to be unique and different. There are some kids who very, very willingly go to the piano or any instrument and they just play every day. But we have another problem, which is that they might not be playing what they're asked to do. They might just be clunking around, and that's not a bad thing, because we love the fact that they are actually having a relationship with the instrument, and they are integrating these lessons into their lives. But there also will come a time, maybe when they're a little bit older, 7 or 8 years old, where suddenly they will realize, and we as parents and the students will realize, that they're just not getting anywhere with it, and suddenly piano seems hard, or any instrument seems hard. So that is where we have to slightly change our methods and help them to understand that there is something called repetition, and doing something a certain way that the teacher is asking that will result in a positive outcome. So, I never say to students in that age range, do something more than 5 times in a row. Sometimes I'll say 3 times. In the lesson, we'll do something 3 times in a row that needs to be worked on, and then, they'll see, oh, I'm developing a new habit here, or I'm reversing what became a bad habit in the way I was doing something, and we're trying to undo that bad habit, replace it with a good habit, or we're trying to just cultivate a new technique to begin with. And kids eventually will start to realize that once you are going down that path with them, that you're trying to get something to be played the right way, they'll start to say, oh, I can have an active partnership in this, and I can do this myself. That aha moment sometimes doesn't come so much later, though. Sometimes it comes when they're like 10. It's a challenge, because up until that time, there are some kids who just have to be told, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to get from A to B, and they don't question it. Other kids do question it, and they say, why should I do this? It's boring, or it's not something I want to do. And this is a challenge. This is a real challenge. So, if you are the parent of a child in that situation, I would say don't worry. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You have to keep the faith, and you have to also let the child know that you believe in them, and that there is a reason for doing all this. And I think that part of getting the child to understand why it is that we are asking them to go through these hoops is because there is a light at the end of the tunnel, showing them maybe videos of other kids who have been on their journey, who have gotten from point A to B, where they can play songs, they can play pieces that really show off the best of what this child can do. That is going to inspire them. If they're not inspired, it's just maybe not the right instrument for them. Maybe we need to find a different activity. Maybe we need to find a different instructor who will maybe inspire them a little bit better. So that does exist, this situation. Not everyone is right for music lessons or the type of music lessons that a particular school offers. But I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, you change the environment and suddenly learning is possible. I really believe that kids who do well at anything will want to continue doing well at whatever it is they're doing. And it is really up to the instructors primarily to find out what is it that interests a student, what is it that can unlock their potential, how do they learn best. This is my job, this is our role as educators, is to find that out. And only when we've exhausted all of these methods can we actually say that this isn't the right program for a child. I will tell you that probably 90% of all of the students who come to our program are there even at a young age because there is some spark that has gotten them interested. And it is particularly when we have that spark that is involved in a student's journey, whether it's the student has expressed an interest, whether or not they have seen their parent play an instrument at home, whether or not they saw some child or teacher at school. Whatever that spark is, we owe it as educators and parents to our children not to let them give that spark up. That's how I see this journey, and ultimately your child will see that journey as well. But again, it's all about having the right tools, which means the right instructor, the right environment at home, also having the right relationship with the instrument that the student has, how much access they have to it at home, whether they feel that they can just clunk around when they would like to, but also balancing that with discipline, which means teaching a child that they need to have maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes as they get older, of just pure uninterrupted practicing, whether it's aided by the parent or not. And that will set you on the road to success. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to answer your questions and be a sounding board. Sometimes it's something as simple as Johnny doesn't know what to practice. We need to just write down what he's supposed to do during the lessons. Email me if you have any further questions. lessons@maestromusicians.com. You can find out more about our school at www.maestromusicianslexington.com or www.walpoleschoolofmusic.com. We have 2 different websites. And again, this is Daniel Broniatowski from the Maestro Musicians Academy. We are based in Lexington, Walpole, and Bedford, Massachusetts, serving Greater Boston and the World Wide Web. Have a wonderful day, everyone.